Hi, a year or so ago, when we were trying to think about what to do about the heating in a large church, which had a very high ceiling, and the steward said very sensibly what they really wanted was instant heat, so that they could only need to allow for a very short space of time from the beginning of the service for the heating to be put on. And then it could be turned off after the service until the next event was taking place in that space. And all of us stayed quiet because we looked and saw that they were based on a convection system, and it's very difficult to manage to move that air so quickly and get it so warm to go around such a large space. Another smaller church, which uses its worship space on one day a week, uses an alternative system, which is to blast up their gas-fired central heating near the start of the service, more or less full on. So the question arose as to whether we could achieve this rapid heating in a low-carbon manner. Convection of air is a relatively slow way of moving heat around compared to the direct transfer of infrared light, which literally travels at the speed of light. So an alternative then is to use an infrared source and allow that to heat up a space that you want to be heated. The question is, what is the best way of doing that? We know that water is pretty transparent in the visible region, but as you go to lower energy, through the near infrared and mid-infrared and towards the far infrared, then the absorption becomes very high indeed. And so that the light sources which are being used for infrared heaters now tend to be in three classes. One is classed as glowing, where there's radiation coming through into the red. And then it is a bit lower in energy, is achieved by having a hot surface of about 300, 350 degrees. And then at lower energy still, to use basically a hot kettle temperature, where you have a surface at 90 to 100 degrees centigrade. And these closely match the ability of water pretty much at its maximum to absorb infrared. So from a source, the infrared can be transmitted through air with very little loss, and then it is absorbed by the surface of the material, only a few microns or millimeters of that material, and that'll be where the energy sink will be. So here is a very simple version of one of these infrared sources, and it operates around nominally about 90 degrees centigrade. There's an infrared sensor on the iPhone to image the temperature across something, and we have a lithium iron phosphate battery, which also shows the power which is being drawn from the battery. In terms of the heating panel, it does reach about 90 degrees centigrade, and it takes about 5 minutes to do so. The current which it draws is around 230 milliamps. It's not thermostated, that is the constant current. In terms of what it does to the locality, this is a picture of the edge of our sofa and a thermal image. The temperature is around 19 or 20 degrees. The edge of the sofa does indeed warm up, and within about a quarter of an hour, the temperature is up towards 37 degrees in part of this particular setup. So it seems this small unit here, little more than a couple of old light bulbs in terms of energy, could at least give us a local heating which might prevent us from putting the thermostat on the central heating a little bit higher. A unit like this heating panel here is light. It requires very little installation, and there's no more moving parts, so the lifetime of it should be quite long. Now, larger versions exist, and some have been tried out at different churches. In this example here, which is using the glowing wall-mounted heating elements, essentially they reckon that they have reduced their energy consumption by half. And in their particular case, using electrical heating, that's meant that their bills have been halved as well. In this example here, though, a much larger church, a set of pendant lights are being used, which have a combination of light and heating elements. Here there's a rapid, quite directed heating of the area in a particular part of the church. Again, as in the other example, the warming up period of time before services has been reduced to about 30 minutes. This example here shows in quite some detail what the properties of this light system are. So overall, it seems that the far infrared method allows you to have quite good control of the location of your heating. The installation costs are relatively low, and probably it uses about 1/2 of the energy that you would have used in a more conventional arrangement of heating. Now, the cost variations will be dependent on the tariffs. You're moving from perhaps gas or oil or electricity for your storage heatings or convection heating, and you're moving towards a straightforward electrical system. That is easier to green, to get to a carbon zero system if you're using electricity than if you're fossil fuel based. So it's promising, and I think it's going to vary very much on the situation as to whether this is viable or not. I think we'll certainly look at this and perhaps trial it in one of our churches. One advantage appears to be really that you can phase a program much more easily in this local based heating system. We'll see what happens.